So, as you may have already noticed, I've moved on to the ghostly section of my story. And aside from the few presidents that were ever willing to admit that the White House was haunted, there are many more first ladies that seem to not have any fears about admitting to this. Some of these women even confirmed that they'd consulted spiritual mediums and had their palms read. They had also had conducted seances to communicate with the dead. So, let me first tell you about the wife of our 14th president, Franklin Pierce. This would be Jane Pierce. Now, Jane had been obsessed with death and illness from a very young age. She often wrote metaphysical letters to her family members discussing mortality and the afterlife. When she suffered the tragic loss of their son Benny shortly after her husband's inauguration in March of 1853, she made it her mission in life to reconnect with her son. The family had been traveling by train in Massachusetts when the train derailed and their car was overturned.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. The 11-year-old Benny's skull had been crushed, though it was not immediately clear. Both Jane and Franklin caught sight of their little boy and assumed that he was in shock or asleep. His hat had been in place where they could not see the damage right away, and little Benny was the only fatality in this accident. The celebration of Pierce's victory had been overshadowed by this loss. To make things even more tragic, they had already lost their other children years before. This led Jane Pierce to being in a state of constant depression. She wore black every day, mourning the death of her children, locking herself away in her room in the White House so that she could slip deeper and deeper into her depression. Jane started obsessing with trying to communicate with her son from beyond the grave. The first thing she did was write a cathartic letter to her deceased child, Benny. In this very heartbroken letter, Jane pleaded to Benny. She would apologize for being a terrible mother to him and write how she wished that he could come back to her. She became more and more determined that there was a possible way of reconnecting with her son. So she sought out the most famous people at the time, known for their ability to connect with the deceased. And this was the Fox sisters. The Fox sisters, who were three sisters from New York, Leah, Margaret, or Maggie, and Kate Fox, made a career out of speaking with the dead from a very young age through the spirits knocking or rapping on furniture and walls in response to questions. As children, the murdered corpse of a traveling salesman was said to have been discovered underneath their home, which was confirmed by asking the spirits to spell out the location. The skeleton that was actually found under their house, however, was actually a construction of several different corpses and included the bones of a chicken.
These fucking bitches.
So they were fairly famous by the time the First Lady called on them to perform seances in the White House. And though not much is known about the actual White House seance, Jane Pierce wrote to her sister that her son began appearing to her in her dreams after their seance. Though the dreams had been so real to Jane Pierce that she finally felt some comfort since her son's passing, even though it wasn't lasting. And at the conclusion of her husband's presidency, the couple made a prolonged trip in search of health for her. Though the quest was unsuccessful and having contracting tuberculosis, the couple came home to New Hampshire to be near family and friends until Jane's death in 1863. She was buried near Benny's grave at the Old North Cemetery in Concord, which is apparently haunted. And among the things that you can find there, a ghost dog is one of them. There is a woman that has been seen wearing a colonial era outfit and carrying a lantern. Sure, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like it might be Jane, right? Nope. New England, watching over the dead, carrying a lantern. Come on. That's got to be our Laka Waka, right? So